The British Empire didn't collapse suddenly. It looked strong long after the damage was done. Its currency was global. Its navy controlled trade. Its institutions shaped the world. And yet, by the time Britain realized what was wrong, it was already too late. The mistake wasn't military. It wasn't political. It was structural. Britain continued to project power while quietly weakening its foundations. Debt increased. Industry hollowed out. Financial confidence replaced productive strength. From the outside, the empire still looked dominant. From the inside, it was becoming fragile, and history rarely repeats itself exactly. But it does repeat patterns. And today, many economists are quietly asking the same uncomfortable question. Is America repeating Britain's final mistake? The parallels are unsettling. A dominant global currency, expanding debt, a shift from production to finance. Like Britain once did, America still shapes global rules. But rulemaking is not the same as resilience. Britain believed its empire gave it permanent leverage. It underestimated how quickly economic foundations can erode. America today believes its markets, its military, and its dollar guarantee long-term dominance. But history suggests power fades not when strength disappears, but when imbalance grows unchecked. This video is not about collapse. It's about warning signs, about how empires often fall without realizing they're falling. By the end of this episode, you'll understand what Britain missed, why America's situation feels familiar, and why the most dangerous phase of decline is the one that still looks like strength. To see why Britain's mistake mattered, we need to go back to what actually sustained the empire before the illusion took over. The British Empire did not lose its power because it lost control of territory. It lost power because it lost control of production. At its peak, Britain was the workshop of the world. It manufactured goods, it controlled trade routes, and it converted production into influence. But over time, the foundation shifted. Industry moved outward. Capital moved inward. Britain began importing what it once produced. Its economy leaned more heavily on finance than manufacturing. London became a global financial center. On paper, this looked like progress. Wealth flowed through banks, credit expanded, the pound retained global importance. But financial dominance masked a deeper weakness. Britain was no longer generating enough real output to support its global role. The empire depended increasingly on borrowing, external trade balances, and confidence. World War I accelerated the problem. Massive debt, resource strain, industrial exhaustion. Britain emerged victorious, but financially weakened. The illusion of strength remained. The costs were postponed. By the time World War II ended, the gap between Britain's global role and its economic capacity was impossible to ignore. Debt levels were unsustainable. Industrial competitiveness had declined. The pound lost its reserve status, and with it, Britain lost the ability to finance global leadership. The empire didn't collapse. It quietly adjusted downward. Influence faded, power consolidated elsewhere. Britain's mistake was not believing it could lose power. It believed finance could permanently replace production. History suggests otherwise. In the next part, we'll examine why America's trajectory now resembles Britain's at its most fragile moment. The similarities between Britain's past and America's present are not superficial, they are structural. Like Britain once did, America built its power on production. Manufacturing, innovation, industrial dominance. But over time, the center of gravity shifted. Factories moved overseas, supply chains stretched across continents. What remained at home was finance. Capital markets expanded, credit grew rapidly, asset prices climbed. On the surface, this looked like success. Markets were rising, consumption remained strong. But beneath that surface, the structure changed. America began consuming more than it produced. Trade deficits became permanent. Debt filled the gap. Unlike most countries, America could borrow endlessly, not because it was immune to debt, but because it issued the world's reserve currency. The dollar gave America a unique advantage. It could finance consumption with global savings. For decades, this masked the imbalance. Debt didn't feel dangerous. It felt normal. Financial markets rewarded leverage. Asset ownership replaced productivity as the main path to wealth. This is where the pattern becomes clear. Britain believed finance could sustain empire. America believes markets can sustain dominance. In both cases, confidence replaced balance. As long as confidence holds, the system appears stable. But confidence is not resilience. The danger is not collapse. It's dependence. Dependence on capital inflows. Dependence on rising asset prices. Dependence on uninterrupted growth. This is the stage Britain entered before its global role quietly shrank. In the next part, we'll examine how political leadership, especially in times of imbalance, often accelerates these patterns rather than correcting them. When economic balance weakens, politics changes. Not because leaders cause the shift, but because the system begins demanding different responses. History shows this pattern clearly. In late-stage empires, political leadership becomes louder, more reactive, and more polarized. Britain experienced this as its economic base eroded. Debates intensified, blame shifted. Short-term fixes replaced long-term repair. America is now in a similar phase. Political movements don't emerge in isolation. They reflect pressure already present in the system. Donald Trump did not create America's economic imbalance. He emerged from it. Deindustrialization, wage stagnation, rising living costs. These pressures built quietly for decades. Trump's appeal was simple: restore strength, protect industry, reassert control. These messages resonate when confidence is fragile, but political solutions rarely address structural problems. Tariffs don't rebuild supply chains overnight. Rhetoric doesn't reverse decades of leverage. Instead, politics often accelerates existing trends. Markets become more volatile. Policy becomes reactive. Long-term planning gets sacrificed for short-term stability. This creates a dangerous feedback loop. Economic imbalance fuels political tension. Political tension increases economic uncertainty. The system survives, but becomes more fragile. Britain experienced this before its global role diminished. The warning was not collapse. It was instability becoming normal. America today feels similar, not because one leader failed, but because the structure rewards speed over repair. In the next part, we'll examine the final layer that keeps this system functioning: confidence, and what happens when confidence becomes the system itself. At this stage, the system is no longer held together by production or balance. It is held together by confidence. Confidence in markets, confidence in institutions, confidence in the dollar. This is where America's position becomes uniquely powerful and uniquely fragile. The US dollar is not just a currency. It is the backbone of global finance. Trade is settled in dollars. Debt is denominated in dollars. Reserves are held in dollars. As long as the world trusts the dollar, America can run imbalances no other country could sustain. This trust creates an illusion that deficits don't matter, that debt is manageable, that growth is guaranteed. Financial markets reinforce this belief. Rising asset prices signal health, even when fundamentals weaken. Central banks play a key role. They stabilize volatility. They provide liquidity. They reassure markets. Each intervention strengthens the perception that the system is under control. But perception is not repair. Over time, confidence becomes self-referential. Markets believe because markets have believed before. This creates a fragile equilibrium. As long as confidence holds, the system functions. But confidence requires maintenance, clear communication, predictable policy, controlled narratives. Any disruption becomes dangerous, not because it breaks the system, but because it questions belief. This is the quiet risk Britain faced before its influence faded. When confidence becomes the system, strength depends on perception, not resilience, and perception can change faster than fundamentals can be fixed. In the final part, we'll step back and ask the most important question. What happens when the world stops believing at the same pace it once did? Decline rarely announces itself. It doesn't arrive as collapse. It arrives as normalization. This is the most dangerous phase any dominant system can enter. When imbalance feels ordinary, when instability becomes familiar. Britain didn't fall when its empire ended. It fell when it accepted that its role had quietly changed. America is not collapsing, but it is adjusting, often without admitting it. Debt is no longer temporary. It is structural. Growth is no longer organic. It is supported. Confidence is no longer a byproduct. It is a requirement. This doesn't mean collapse is inevitable, but it does mean the margin for error is thin. Small shocks matter more. Miscalculations carry higher costs. The world senses this. Capital moves faster. Politics grows louder. Stability now depends on managing perception as much as reality. This is not unique to America. It is the pattern every dominant power eventually faces. The lesson from Britain is not that empires disappear. It's that they evolve, often downward, long before people notice. Power doesn't vanish, it redistributes. And those living through the shift rarely feel clarity, only tension. Understanding this matters, because it explains why confidence feels forced, why politics feels unstable, and why prosperity feels conditional. The most dangerous phase of decline is not collapse. It's when everything still works, just not as well as it used to. Welcome to Financial Room.